Welcome to the Dream Novel channel. Before starting to listen to the fun in this clip, don't forget to like and comment, so that the admin will have the encouragement to continue making clips. Let's go listen. Channel Dream Novel. Chapter 61, Conflict. When Kyle emerged from the headmaster's office, he was holding a feather along with the magic-suppressing potion. It was a warm phoenix tail feather, a gift from Fox. The phoenix had plucked it off right in front of Kyle's eyes, as if sensing his departure. Kyle hadn't just broken even, he had profited, trading a simple bluebell for a fresh phoenix tail feather. What a generous phoenix, he thought. After leaving the 8th floor, Kyle hurried towards the Quidditch pitch. But upon arriving, he was greeted by a group of young Hufflepuffs carrying Cedric and rushing towards the hospital wing, all while cursing angrily. The shameless scum from Slytherin. Rude and dirty, they don't deserve to play Quidditch. Slytherin should be disqualified. Cedric, being carried by the young Badgers, clutched his head with one hand while holding his right leg with the other, his face twisted in pain. Seeing this, Kyle quickly followed. From their heated conversation, it wasn't hard to guess that Cedric had been injured, and that the Slytherin players were responsible. Spotting Ryan and Mikkel in the crowd, Kyle rushed over, patting one of them on the shoulder. "What happened on the pitch?" he asked. Ryan, startled, turned around in surprise. "Kyle, where have you been? Why are you only just getting here?" "The headmaster called for me, so I went to his office," Kyle replied briefly, before asking again, "Never mind me, how's Cedric?" At this, Ryan's face flushed with anger. "It's those shameless Slytherins again. You don't know, Cedric was about to catch the snitch, just a little more and we would have won. But then the Slytherin captain took advantage of Cedric focusing on the snitch and punched him in the head, knocking him clean off his broom." "Yes," Mikkel added, equally outraged. "And do you know what that git said to Madam Hooch? He actually claimed he thought Cedric's head was a quaffle. That rude, stupid, underdeveloped gorilla doesn't deserve to play in a tournament like this. He should be sent off." Mikkel fumed. "It's not football, Mikkel," Ryan reminded him. "You can't send someone off in Quidditch." Mikkel jutted his chin out stubbornly. "But it's still unfair to just give Hufflepuff a free shot." As Ryan and Mikkel went back and forth in their outrage, Kyle quickly pieced together what had happened. Just as he had suspected, Slytherin had resorted to dirty tactics after realizing they couldn't win the game fairly. Soon, the group arrived at the hospital wing. By Merlin's beard! What on earth happened? Madame Pomfrey was furious. A broken nose and a complete break of the right leg. "I don't understand why Hogwarts organizes such dangerous games. Every year someone is brought in, every single year." She wasted no time in mending Cedric's leg, casting her healing spells with practiced precision. Once his leg was set, she sent everyone else away, but kept Kyle behind. With other patients to attend to, she couldn't watch over Cedric herself, and since she vaguely remembered Kyle, the responsibility fell to him. As she closed the door, she muttered under her breath, complaining about the dangers of Quidditch and the incompetence of the teachers who allowed it. Kyle sat down by Cedric's bedside and poured him a glass of water. "How are you feeling?" "My leg still hurts a bit," Cedric admitted, shifting slightly in bed, "but it's already much better." There was never any doubt about Madame Pomfrey's skill. If it had been Cedric's arm instead of his leg, he would likely have been discharged already. It's a pity about the game, though. We were 30 points ahead. Cedric sighed in frustration as he sank back into his pillow. "If only I'd paid more attention to what was happening around me." "It's okay, it's just one game," Kyle reassured him. "Winning or losing isn't important. Besides, it's practically Slytherin tradition to foul during the match. Even if you dodged them this time, they'd come after you again. And if you keep avoiding them, you'll never be able to catch the golden snitch." "You're right," Cedric admitted, scratching his head in frustration. "But what about the rest of the games?" Hufflepuff and Slytherin would face each other more than once during the season, and Cedric had no desire to end up in the hospital wing 3 more times. "Don't worry," Kyle said after a moment's thought. "You just focus on getting better, and leave the rest to me." "Wait, are you joining the Quidditch team?" Cedric asked in surprise. "What position would you play, Beater?" Kyle snorted. "You're thinking too much. Once the competition has started, it's impossible for me to join, even if I wanted to, unless someone withdraws voluntarily." Hogwarts rules on Quidditch were clear. Each house had only one opportunity to recruit new players, and it was limited to the second week of the school year. In reality, the captains often selected their teams by the end of the first week and submitted the names to Madame Hooch at the beginning of the second. This gave new players time to train with the team before the matches began, and saved the professors any hassle. After that, no substitutions were allowed unless a player left school, dropped out, or could no longer play for medical reasons. And Madame Hooch was firm on this. "Then what did you mean by taking care of it? Wait, you're not thinking of going after Slytherin, are you?" Cedric's expression turned serious as he realized what Kyle might be implying. "Don't do anything that breaks school rules. I just broke a leg, it's not that serious. And you're only a first year. Most of the Slytherin players are third years or older. They'd be happy to take you on, and Professor Snape won't." "Hey, hold on a minute," Kyle interrupted, raising an eyebrow. "What's all this talk about first years and third years? You don't think I'm planning to duel them, do you?" Cedric froze. "Aren't you?" "You wish," Kyle replied, giving him a disgusted look. "I think Madame Pomfrey should check your head again." Channel Dream Novel. Chapter 62, The Tense Atmosphere in the Hospital Wing. In the hospital wing, Cedric and Kyle locked eyes, an awkward silence filling the air. It was Cedric who felt the weight of the moment more. If he weren't lying in bed, he might have tried to dig a hole right there to escape the embarrassment. "I'm glad that's not the case," Cedric muttered, turning his head to the side in an attempt to appear calm. Kyle cleared his throat, his tone suddenly serious. "Cedric, why on earth would you want to duel them? We're Hufflepuffs, the most honest and model students at Hogwarts. That kind of thinking is dangerous." He leaned in slightly. "Think of Professor Sprout, how disappointed she'd be if she found out you'd become so impulsive, reckless, and disobedient." I haven't thought about it." Cedric shot back, annoyed. The truth was, when he was brought to the hospital wing, he'd overheard some of the others talking about confronting the Slytherins for a proper one-on-one fight. Quite a few were fired up about it. At the time, his head and leg had hurt too much for him to protest, and he had been too out of it to stop them. Now, as Kyle spoke, he'd assumed his friend was thinking the same way. "You don't need to explain," Kyle said, not even glancing at him, his voice calm and reflective. "I understand. You were seriously hurt, and it's only natural to say something rash when you're emotional. Just be more cautious next time. Here, have a chocolate frog." Before the young Badgers left the hospital wing, they had left some snacks, mostly treats they'd brought to enjoy during the game. Kyle picked up a chocolate frog, unwrapped it, and handed it over. "I'm telling you, I didn't think like that." Wait a second." Cedric paused mid-sentence, suddenly noticing the card in Kyle's hand. "What are you holding?" Kyle calmly slid his hand into his pocket. "Just an ordinary card. Nicholas Flamel." "I don't have him yet." "No," Cedric said, sitting up straighter. "That's not Nicholas Flamel, it's Agrippa." Though he'd only caught a glimpse, Cedric had seen the golden sheen of the card, something that made it unmistakable. The Chocolate Frog Company had commissioned a renowned alchemist to create a unique protection for this rare card. It was a fail-safe against people using doubling charms to duplicate it or Accio to steal it. The protection charm was far superior to the one on galleons. There was only one card in the entire Chocolate Frog set that used this enchantment, Cornelius Agrippa, the rarest of them all. Realizing this, Cedric immediately reached out. "Give it back." "That was my chocolate frog," so the card inside is naturally mine too. Kyle, seeing he'd been caught, stopped pretending. But I'm the one who opened it. If it had been yours, you'd have gotten a Dumbledore at best. It doesn't matter who opened it. The card is Cornelius Agrippa, and it's mine. Cedric retorted, getting increasingly frustrated. I just need this one to complete my collection. Kyle clutched his pocket defensively. I need this one too. Just like on the train, they were back to staring each other down, the tension in the air thick. But this time, Kyle clearly had the upper hand. He shot Cedric a defiant look, then walked toward the door of the hospital wing, opened it, and stepped outside. But then he came back in. Out again. Then in once more. Cedric was at his wit's end, staring incredulously as Kyle teased him. He couldn't believe his friend would stoop so low as to taunt a patient with a broken leg. Okay, no more jokes. Seeing Cedric practically gasping for breath from frustration, Kyle walked back to his bedside and pulled the Agrippa card from his pocket. I really can't give it to you. I need it, Kyle said, his expression unusually serious. I have to admit, Slytherin is really lucky. I was wondering what to do next, and then this card showed up right on time. Slytherin. Cedric put down the shoe he'd been holding threateningly and gave Kyle a puzzled look. What does your plan have to do with this card? Kyle nodded gravely. This is Agrippa, Cedric muttered, his face filled with longing and worry. If I could get my hands on an Agrippa, I'd be willing to fall off my broom a few more times. Kyle shot him a look of disdain. It's just a card. Look at you, completely hopeless. This isn't about a card. We're talking about venting your frustration. On a small scale, sure, but on a larger scale, it could decide whether Hufflepuff wins the Quidditch Cup. Now tell me, what's more important, an Agrippa card or the Quidditch Cup? Cedric paused, Kyle's words sinking in. That's true. He mumbled, feeling torn between his collection and his house's victory. Exactly. Kyle declared, sensing he was making headway. But Cedric couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Kyle was acting way too serious for his usual self. The more Cedric thought about it, the more convinced he became that Kyle was pulling one over on him, that the Agrippa card had nothing to do with Kyle's so-called plan. Why don't you just let me have the Agrippa, even for just one night? Cedric suggested cautiously. That way, I can at least say I had him once. I'll give it back to you tomorrow when I'm discharged, or we could carry out the plan together. Kyle shook his head, standing tall as though he were preparing for battle. No, leave the dirty work to me, he said with exaggerated bravado, patting his chest. Your task right now is to rest and heal properly. Cedric just stared, deadpan. He was sure now, Kyle was definitely fooling him. Narrowing his eyes, Cedric bent down to pick up his shoes again, intending to confront Kyle. But by the time he looked back up, Kyle had already darted out of the hospital wing, quick as lightning. Cedric fumed, watching as Kyle made his escape. At that moment, Madame Pomfrey appeared, carrying a tray. What are you doing with your shoes? She asked, frowning at him. Your bones need time to heal properly. You'll be staying here overnight. I'm sorry, madam, Cedric mumbled, forcing a smile as he sheepishly put his shoes back down. Madame Pomfrey sighed, shaking her head as she began rebandaging Cedric's leg. Honestly, young wizards these days are so unreliable. She finished up and then reached over, placing something on his bed. I found this by your bedside. Remember to keep your belongings tidy. Cedric's heart skipped a beat, his eyes widening in surprise. He looked down at the card Madame Pomfrey had placed in front of him. It was a bearded old man, gazing kindly at him from the card. Cedric's heart, which had been burning with excitement moments earlier, sank like a stone as he read the description. Nicholas Flamel, widely regarded as the most famous living alchemist, is known for his contributions to Kyle. Cedric growled, gritting his teeth as he glared at the hospital wing's entrance. He desperately wanted to leap out of bed, track Kyle down, and give him a well-deserved punch. But one glance at Madame Pomfrey bustling nearby quickly put an end to that thought. Resigned, Cedric sighed heavily and reached for the 2 remaining chocolate frogs. Maybe there was still hope of finding another Agrippa. He unwrapped them with growing anticipation, but a minute later, he sighed again. 2 Dumbledores stared back at him. Defeated, he slipped the cards under his pillow. Channel Dream Novel. Chapter 63, Why Does It Leave a Sweet Aftertaste? Don't worry, Cedric's fine. Madame Pomfrey said he'll be discharged tomorrow morning, Kyle announced as soon as they returned to the Hufflepuff common room. The young Badgers, who had been anxiously waiting ever since leaving the hospital wing, perked up at the news. Even the Quidditch players, who had arrived earlier but were clearly disheartened, looked a bit relieved. Seeker Cedric's injury had been a huge blow to team morale. Although a substitute had taken over the chaser position, they still lost the match, 60-220, a crushing 160-point gap. At least Cedric's condition wasn't too serious, which was a small comfort. Peter Jazzer, a 7th-year student, exhaled in relief. If that's the case, he'll be back in time for practice tomorrow afternoon. Jazzer, who was in his final year, had one goal before graduating, winning the Quidditch Cup for Hufflepuff. Damn it! Captain Harris slammed his fist against the wall in frustration. This can't just be left like this. Yes, we can't let this slide, someone chimed in angrily. Slytherin hit our Seeker so blatantly. They're showing they don't respect you as captain, and I can't stand it. Captain, another voice spoke up quietly, I heard some of the Slytherin players are going to Hogsmeade tomorrow. Maybe we could, shut it, Henry, Harris interrupted sharply, turning to glare at him. Remember, no one lays a hand on any Slytherin players. I'll deal with this. Kyle, who wasn't far away, glanced back at Harris after hearing what he said. The captain is still sharp, Kyle thought. We really can't afford to openly cause trouble with Slytherin right now. At the moment, Hufflepuff's house points were only about 10 points behind Slytherin's, a very narrow gap. If Snape got the chance, he wouldn't hesitate to dock Hufflepuff 100 points. And while losing that many points wouldn't normally bother Hufflepuff, there was a real fear that they wouldn't get the satisfaction of hitting back, and they'd still lose the points. That would be truly frustrating. The chance of that happening wasn't small either. Kyle suspected that a certain professor was keeping a close watch on them and might even be the one who leaked the news about the Slytherin players heading to Hogsmeade Village. Shaking his head, Kyle stopped paying attention to the conversation. He called Mikkel and Ryan over, and the 3 of them returned to the dormitory together. Kyle, what was so important that you couldn't say it outside? Mikkel asked, a bit reluctant as he'd been discussing Quidditch with the others when Kyle called him back to the dorm. He glanced at the Vimborn Wasps poster on Kyle's bed and sighed. I've just started to realize how interesting Quidditch actually is. Too bad first years can't join the team. But I'm definitely signing up next year. What about you guys? Want to come along? Mikkel closed his eyes, already imagining himself soaring across the Quidditch pitch on his broomstick. He envisioned catching the golden snitch, with the crowd roaring his name in deafening cheers. It was a wonderful feeling. Wake up first, sleep later. An indifferent voice snapped him out of his daydream. Quidditch can wait until next year. You have more important things to take care of right now. Kyle waited until Mikkel opened his eyes before reaching over and handing him a blue bottle of potion. Time to take your medicine, buddy. Michael's smile instantly vanished when he saw the magic-suppressing potion. No way. I just took it the other day. Mikkel protested firmly. 60 days ago, Kyle corrected him. You know you're supposed to take it every 2 months. It's been 2 months already. That fast? Mikkel still couldn't believe it. The foul taste of the potion was so unforgettable, it felt like he had just taken it yesterday. Hey, did you forget? Ryan whispered from the side. Halloween was just a few days ago. Hearing this, Mikkel quickly snapped back to reality. Right, It was just Halloween, he thought. So, 2 months really had passed. Okay, fine, you're right, Mikkel admitted, his eyes darting around. But I've got stuff to do later. Just leave it on the table, and I'll drink it when I get back tonight. Okay, don't forget, Kyle said as he placed the potion on the table. Mikkel let out an audible sigh of relief. Don't worry, I won't. I'm heading to the library to finish my homework. See you tonight. As Mikkel turned to leave, Kyle quietly drew his wand. Incarcerus. Thick ropes shot from the tip of Kyle's wand, binding Mikkel tightly. What are you doing? What are you doing? Mikkel struggled frantically, but it was no use. He could only watch helplessly as Kyle approached with the potion in hand. Don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. Mikkel pleaded. Don't blame me. I'm upset about this too, Kyle said sincerely as he knelt down beside him. But I have a job to do. Dumbledore gave me the task, and I have to see it through. I'm fine, really. Mikkel insisted, trying to salvage the situation. Professor Sprout said I've improved a lot. There's no way I'll have accidents like before. That was the levitation charm, and we've all learned the floating charm by now, Kyle reminded him. Then I don't need a wand. Mikkel cried out, still struggling. I can do it without a wand, right? Kyle shook his head. Doing charm class without a wand is like playing Quidditch without a broom. Kyle gave Ryan a subtle signal, and Ryan immediately caught on. Rolling up his sleeves, he stepped forward. Together, the two of them managed to get the magic-suppressing potion down Michael's throat without spilling a single drop. Ryan, holding the now empty bottle, asked curiously, what exactly is this stuff? Magic-suppressing potion. It's pretty rare, Kyle explained. Rare? Ryan asked. Yeah, Kyle replied, pausing to think. Let me put it this way, if you weren't at Hogwarts, you'd need at least 50 galleons to get your hands on a potion like this. And that would be for the lowest quality version. 50 galleons? Ryan gasped. His wand had only cost 7 galleons, and this one potion was worth 7 wands. Yep. But the one you just saw was made by Professor Snape himself, Kyle continued. A potion brewed by a master like him would sell for double that in Diagon Alley, around 100 galleons. Even Mikkel, who had been lying on the floor pretending to be a limp fish, suddenly sat up when he heard that number. He had just swallowed something worth 100 galleons. Mikkel smacked his lips, trying to catch the sweet aftertaste. Channel Dream Novel. Chapter 64, The Freely Floating Bottom Line. It was evening in an empty classroom at Hogwarts. The flickering light of an oil lamp cast the shadows of the 3 figures present obliquely onto the wall. I'm glad you came to us, Kyle, but we can't do this, Fred said, lowering his head and hiding his face from the light. We've known each other for years, but this is the first time you've asked for our help since you got to Hogwarts, he continued. I can't even remember the last time we had dinner together. Last Wednesday, Kyle, sitting across from him, paused briefly to think. You tried to sell my homework to the Gryffindor first years. My friend, you were very firm in your refusal, George chimed in indifferently. You have no idea how heartbroken we were when we had to walk away. I just didn't need detention from Professor McGonagall, Kyle replied. Selling homework in bulk. You two will come up with anything. Do you really think Professor McGonagall wouldn't notice something like that? She's not Ron, you know. Ahem, well, maybe you're right, Fred said, looking up at Kyle. But why aren't you worried about getting caught by McGonagall today? It's not that difficult, you could have done this yourself, or asked someone in Hufflepuff for help, right? We're being watched closely by Snape, Kyle explained. Oh, I see. So you're coming to us for the dirty work, George sighed. You found your place in Hufflepuff. You like it there, the professors and students like you. Honestly, you probably don't even need us anymore, and you've never even called us seniors. Enough with the dramatics. Are you in or out? Kyle's patience was running thin. "Mr. Weasley, I'm going to count to 3. If you don't answer, I'll go find someone else." 1. "George, look, he's even threatening us." "Yeah, Fred, we're so scared." 2. "I think you can count faster." Kyle didn't bother responding. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a golden card, waving it in front of Fred and George's faces. 3. "We'll do it." Fred and George exclaimed simultaneously, suddenly appearing on either side of Kyle, grinning broadly. "Kyle, that card you were holding, was that Agrippa?" Fred asked eagerly. Kyle nodded. Fred leaned in, his voice full of anticipation. "Can I see it again? Just for a second?" Kyle, smirking, pulled out the rare card once more and waved it in front of them. Their eyes widened with awe, following the card's every movement as Kyle swung it back and forth. After about 10 seconds of teasing them, Kyle tucked the card away. "See this, Agrippa? After we finish the job, you're going to give it to us." George interrupted, eyes wide with excitement. "You wish," Kyle said flatly. "I'll lend it to you for 10 minutes after the job's done." 10 days. Fred countered, frowning. 9 minutes, Kyle shot back. "No way." "A week at the very least," George jumped in. 5 minutes. "1 day, that's our final offer," the twins said in unison. "Deal." Kyle extended his hand, and the 3 of them high-fived. The agreement was sealed, and now it was time to iron out the details. "Actually, we weren't planning on saying no," Fred said with a grin, patting Kyle on the shoulder. "We're always happy to do anything to make Slytherin's life difficult." "But you'll have to provide the props," George added. "That thing needs to be custom-made, and it's very expensive. We can't afford it." "Of course. I've already got it ready." Kyle pulled out a stack of gold galleons and placed them on the table. "There should be enough for the 2 items. It's 20 galleons in total." "More than enough," Fred said, picking up the galleons and rubbing them in his hands. He had never seen so much money before. Though he knew Kyle had made a fortune from selling the map a while back, seeing all these galleons stacked together was a whole different experience. Selling maps makes that kind of money. "Kyle, we..." George glanced at the pile of gold in front of him, seeming like he wanted to say something more. Kyle looked at him, puzzled. "Never mind, we'll talk about it later," George said after a moment's thought, shaking his head. "If it's 20 galleons, Zonkos will definitely be able to deliver what you want on time." Kyle didn't seem too concerned, and after discussing a few more specific details with them, he prepared to leave. "I can't wait," Fred said excitedly. "Slytherin really messed up this time by messing with you." Kyle glanced at him and reminded, "Don't say anything." "What do I have to do with it?" "I don't know anything." "Ha, cunning chopper." "Heh, stupid Weasley." After parting ways with Fred and George, Kyle didn't head back to the Hufflepuff common room right away. Instead, he wandered aimlessly along the 3rd-floor corridors of the castle. He needed to find a particular ghost. The fat friar had mentioned someone who liked to linger near the defense against the dark arts classroom. But after 10 minutes of wandering, Kyle hadn't found anyone. Just as he was about to head back and try again in the morning, a balloon filled with liquid suddenly flew toward the back of his head. Kyle tilted his head slightly, narrowly avoiding it. The balloon hit the ground with a splat, releasing an unpleasant smell. Ho ho ho, pesky first-year brats, wandering around at night instead of sleeping. "TSK TSK TSK, naughty, you'll get caught," came a voice. A small figure appeared in midair, a dwarf with evil black eyes and a wide grin, his legs crossed as he floated. In his hands, he clutched 2 more balloons. "Should I tell Filch, you big idiot and brat?" That was so much fun. Kyle stood still, watching him with interest. "Are you Peeves?" For a moment, doubt flashed in Peeves' small black eyes, but it quickly turned into anger. The little brat didn't even run away. Clearly, he's looking down on me. How dare he? Yes, I am the great Peeves. Peeves hurled the 2 remaining balloons at Kyle. I'll tell Filch about your nighttime wanderings, and he'll lock you up, he said with exaggerated seriousness. I'm going to tell him, for your own good, okay? Kyle flicked his wand, easily deflecting the balloons aside. Unfazed, he replied, I agree with you, but it's still 5 minutes before curfew, so it's not technically a nighttime stroll. Besides, I came here specifically to see you. Come to see me on purpose. Peeves was taken aback. It was rare for any student to willingly seek him out. Yes, Kyle said, lowering his voice as he looked around. I have an idea. I'm not sure if you're interested in getting involved. Channel Dream Novel. Chapter 65, New Broomstick, The Nimbus 2000. The following evening, to celebrate Cedric's discharge from the hospital, the Hufflepuff Quidditch team threw him a small party in the common room after their training session. Cedric was doing well, which was excellent news for the team, and their captain, Harris, had even managed to bring back some butterbeer from Hogsmeade Village to share with everyone. Mainly, though, he wanted a drink for himself. As captain, Harris was under tremendous pressure. Ever since the first round of matches, he had been losing hair by the handful. The competition was fierce. Gryffindor had a top-tier team, with hardly any weaknesses. Slytherin, well-equipped and notorious for bending the rules, made them a nightmare to play against. And Ravenclaw, though often underestimated, was a strong, well-balanced team. For Hufflepuff, Cedric, their talented seeker, was almost their only hope of winning the championship. Harris lifted his butterbeer and clinked glasses with Cedric. Don't worry, it won't happen again. I'm going to assign one of the beaters to protect you. Next time Slytherin tries anything dirty, that beater's bat will land on their face first. Cedric frowned, clearly not thrilled with the idea. There were only 2 beaters on the team, and if one of them was assigned to protect him, it would leave the chasers at a disadvantage. If the other team built up too big of a lead, even catching the golden snitch might not be enough to win. After mulling it over, Cedric decided the plan wasn't worth the risk. He explained his concerns to Harris. Don't worry about that, Harris replied, after thinking it over. This is just a preliminary plan. We can tweak it during our training sessions. Cedric tried several more times to convince Harris to drop the idea, but no matter how well he argued, Harris always responded with the same line, we'll talk about it after the training match. Realizing that Harris wasn't going to budge, Cedric gave up for now. Fine, he thought, we'll see what happens after the training match. Kyle, who wasn't part of the team, also attended the feast but didn't have to worry about any of the tactical discussions. Instead, he simply focused on enjoying the food. He was tempted to try some butterbeer, but before he could reach for a mug, an older student stopped him, reminding him that under 5th years weren't allowed to drink. That put a damper on Kyle's excitement, but there wasn't much he could do about it. Even Cedric, the guest of honor, was drinking pumpkin juice instead. Once the feast ended, everyone headed back to their dormitories. The following days unfolded like any other. Kyle attended classes, ate meals, and spent time in the library doing his homework, just like the rest of the young wizards. It was as if the party and all the earlier drama had never happened. Even Fred and George, notorious for their pranks, seemed to have calmed down a bit. They had only lost Gryffindor 10 points in the past few days, much to Professor McGonagall's delight. She had stopped being as strict with them, and the atmosphere in the school seemed more relaxed. This peace lasted until mid-November, when the second Quidditch match of the season arrived. It was a weekend, and early that morning, a rumor began to spread through Hogwarts like wildfire. Have you heard? There's a new broom on the Gryffindor team. In the Great Hall, a Slytherin first-year eagerly shared what he had just overheard. A new broom? Seven Rosier, the 7th-year Slytherin team captain, scowled as he heard the news. His team was set to face Gryffindor in the afternoon, and the idea of Gryffindor getting an advantage from a new broom just before the match wasn't sitting well with him. But the news got worse. I heard it's not just any broom. It's the Nimbus 2000, and it hasn't even been released yet. Nimbus 2000, someone gasped in disbelief. That's impossible. My uncle works in the Department of Magical Games and Sports at the Ministry of Magic, and even he can't get his hands on a Nimbus 2000. How would the Gryffindors get one? At this, another student chimed in. I heard Bill Weasley brought it back from Egypt. Apparently, he did Nimbus Racing Broom Company a huge favor once. Damn Weasley, someone muttered, slamming their fist on the table. What does this mean for the match? The Nimbus 2000's performance has to be miles ahead of the Nimbus 1700 we're using. The Slytherin who had first spoken stood up abruptly. I'm going to write to my uncle and see if he can get us a Nimbus 2002. Will it arrive in time? Another student asked, sounding skeptical. It should be fine, he replied. Next to them, the Slytherin team members wore dark, brooding expressions after hearing the news, their meals left unfinished. Rosier, their captain, was especially furious. He slammed his fist on the table, knocking his plate over in frustration. Damn it, why now of all times, he growled. Slytherin and Gryffindor had been bitter rivals for as long as anyone could remember, and Rosier couldn't bear the thought of losing to Gryffindor in a match, especially not like this. Don't panic just yet, one of his teammates said, trying to sound calm. The news hasn't been confirmed. The Nimbus 2000 isn't some toy they can just hand out to anyone. Besides, this came out of nowhere, it could just be a rumor to throw us off. Wow! Before he could finish, a collective gasp rose from the Great Hall. Heads turned toward the entrance. Look, what's that? As if mocking Rosier's words, 6 long-eared owls swooped in, carrying an elongated package and landing right on the Gryffindor table. From the shape of the package, it was unmistakable, a broomstick. Even though it was tightly wrapped, everyone could tell that it was longer than a Nimbus 1700, and its design was unlike any of the brooms currently available on the market. The Weasley twins eagerly grabbed the package, grinning from ear to ear, and began talking excitedly with their teammates. Though it was difficult to hear what they were saying from across the hall, the excitement on the Gryffindor side was palpable. Their Quidditch players exchanged glances, their eyes gleaming with excitement, and maybe even a hint of smugness. Rosier's face twisted into a grimace as he watched them, feeling as though their excitement was a direct taunt aimed at him and his team. His frustration boiled over, and, with no food left on his own plate to flip in anger, he instead knocked over the plate of a nearby first year who was unfortunate enough to be sitting next to him. Everyone, go find out what's going on, Rosier ordered through clenched teeth. We need to know if that broom is really the Nimbus 2000. And what if it is? Someone asked nervously. Then write home and get one for yourself. Rosier snapped, his temper flaring. What are you waiting for? Go. The Slytherin team members scattered at his command. Other Slytherins in the hall, noticing the tension, quietly slipped out as well. No one wanted to stick around and risk being the next target of Rosier's foul mood. Now the fun in this clip is over. Which listeners haven't liked and commented yet? You can press like and comment to encourage the admin find the fun in the next clip. May the listeners be happy forever.